Hi there, my name is Christine Garton, and I know you must be wondering who on earth is this person who is talking about all these things weight loss surgery related. Well, I can tell you firsthand that I am a gastric bypass post-op patient. I had my gastric bypass in August of 2016, and as of September 2018, I have lost 140 pounds. Most of that was in the first year, and I have kept it off, thankfully. I'm still about 30 to 35 pounds to what I would consider my goal weight, though my general practitioner and my gastric bypass surgeon both think, oh, you're doing great, don't worry about it. But I joke with them and tell them that I want to get rid of my tummy roll and my gut roll, which I call Bertha and Betty. So, and those thighs could stand to be thinner. It doesn't matter what you weigh. There's always problem areas with every person's body. So anyway, a little bit about my surgery journey and my weight journey. I have been a morbidly obese person pretty much all of my adult life. When I was 2 years old, my mother took me to our pediatrician, and he was the first one at age 2 to tell my mother that I needed to lose weight. And so she put me on a diet at age 2, and thus began the up and the down roller coaster of my weight journey. I remember in probably somewhere in middle school, I think I was 13 or so, I was trying to starve myself because all my friends were so much thinner than I was, even though now that I look back at pictures of myself, I was just a little bit of a larger framed kid. I wasn't grotesquely fat or anything like that. I just didn't fit into all those nice slender fashions of the 70s and 80s that all of my super skinny friends fit into. I was always a tall kid, which was cool, but never really fit into the clothes that I wanted to fit into. I always fit into the clothes that had my size available, and so I was always sad about that. But at 13, I remember my father force-feeding me government cheese because he had brought it home from his federal job. And I was trying to starve myself. I remember days in high school of taking weight loss pills, which were stimulants, which were full of caffeine, with my girlfriends. Once I got into college, I remember gaining a significant amount of weight because I could just eat whatever I wanted to. That was junk. And so the freshman 15 was more like the freshman 40. I remember at the end of college being up into the 230s, and I'm 5'10 and a half, 5'11, somewhere in there. And I remember at that time, it was about a size 22 for me. Now, the sizes have changed. I think clothing sizes for women have gotten larger, meaning that a size 22 then was probably more like an 18 now, honestly. But anyway, in seminary, when I went to grad school, I definitely gained more weight. And by the time I got out of school, at probably about age 27, 28 years old, when I graduated from seminary with two master's degrees, I was well over 300 pounds. I was probably closer to 320, 325 at that point. And stayed that way until I hit my 30th birthday. When I hit 30, I was very depressed that I was over 300 pounds and didn't want to continue into my 30s with polycystic ovarian syndrome and being morbidly obese and being uncomfortable in my body. And I wanted to meet a guy and get married. I mean, I had dated, but I had not had, I had gotten into some serious relationships, but I always felt like my weight was truly holding me back from who I really felt like I was inside. So when I hit 30, I went to my doctor, and I actually got onto a healthy eating program that was based on the Zone diet. It was called the 40-30-30 diet. Some of you may remember that. It was a version of the Zone where you ate 40% healthy carbs, 40% good fat, or 30% good fat and 30% protein at every meal. And I was able to lose 75 pounds on that out of the 150 that I wanted to lose at the time. And I kept that weight off for almost 4 years. It was Basically, when I was in that 75-pound weight loss area, I met the guy who I eventually married, who is still my husband all these years later. And at that time, I stopped focusing on me. I stopped focusing on my own personal growth and my own spiritual growth and my own physical health, because I was so la-la and gaga over this new guy and all the excitement of the new relationship, etc. So we got engaged, we got married, got pregnant about 9 months after we were married with our first child, which was a huge success, because the doctor had told me, you're 35, you're morbidly obese, you're probably not going to get pregnant. And I got pregnant the first month after we started trying. So there. But anyway, I basically ended up keeping off my 75 pounds until the last trimester of my pregnancy, where I got back up to about 309. And then I never truly lost all of that weight again. I got down to the 280s, I think it was, when my son was a year and a half old, something like that. Went back to all the stuff I was doing with the Zone diet, with the 40-30-30 nutrition plan. And I just never quite got back down into the lower weight. I mean, when we were married, in my wedding dress, Mom probably 255 or 260. And I looked okay. I mean, I was in size 18s at the time. But I still was not at what I would consider a healthy weight or my goal weight. So I ended up, after our son was born, continuing to try to lose weight. And then I got pregnant with our second child, with our daughter, and at that point my heaviest, I got up to 343 whenever I was about to give birth. And I was just physically uncomfortable and miserable, and I was 39 years old, and I just did not feel good at all. So after our daughter was born, I tried to lose weight again, and it just wasn't working. And so I continued on my own to sort of try to lose weight, go back to the Zone plan, to the 40-30-30 plan. It didn't ever truly take again. But every time I would try to focus on healthy eating and exercise and such, I would lose a little bit, but I wouldn't lose a whole lot. And so I ended up going back to my doctor, and I still had polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, and I was borderline diabetic. I had been in the pre-diabetes realm for many years, but at this time I was in my mid-40s, and I was getting concerned that no matter what I did, even the things I used to do to lose weight, none of that was working anymore. And as I was getting older, I knew that it was really hard to lose weight. The older you get, the harder it was, is what I had understood. And so I went to my doctor and I told her my concerns and that I was considering a weight loss surgery. Now, I wasn't considering gastric bypass at the time, because I had a college roommate who, back in the late 1980s, early 90s, was 407 pounds. She was 5'1", 5'2", and she was very large, and I adored her. And for 2 years, she tried to get a gastric bypass. And when she finally got one, 6 months later, she died because she lost 150 pounds in 6 months, and she just died in her sleep one night. And I was told at the time that her body just could not take that fast of weight loss, that her organs had shut down because of her losing the weight too quickly. And it broke my heart, and I still miss her to this day, and I really wasn't interested in a gastric bypass at all. Now, 20-some years had passed since she had died, and I knew that a lot of different things had happened in terms of progress and research with the science of weight loss surgery, especially the gastric bypass. So when I went into the surgeon's office just for a consultation, just to fact find, I thought I was looking to potentially get a lap band, which I have since found out is a very dangerous procedure, and that most surgeons don't do that procedure anymore because of all the complications that they've had from people who have had lap bands over the last 15 or 20 years. So I went in thinking, okay, I'm just getting information. And I came out with, oh my gosh, I have to get a gastric bypass. It's the only surgery that my insurance will cover. And it's a surgery, the only surgery really, that my physician, my bariatric surgeon, whom I adore, said that I needed because of my polycystic ovary syndrome and because of my age and some other factors. It was the most restrictive, and quite honestly, knowing myself as well as I do, if I was honest with myself, and I felt like I needed to be at that time, I needed the restriction. I did not feel like I could trust myself to truly do the things necessary to not overeat. And with other procedures such as the gastric sleeve, I had learned a little bit about, knew that you could sometimes some folks have figured out how to get around the fact that the sleeve is restrictive because they can eat more often, things of that nature. I don't need to get into all of that. If you're a sleeve patient, I know you're going to write me and tell me that that's not true, that you've lost oodles of weight. And if that's the case for you, I am so happy for you. That is fabulous. I just knew that for me, not only would my surgeon did not recommend it for me, that my insurance company wouldn't cover it. So I really felt like I needed the severe restriction. So I opted for the gastric bypass. Now that was May of 2015. And I went through the 3 months of the process with my insurance company and with what my surgery office required. And just as I was getting ready to have the surgery, took the time off work, had the childcare all lined up, had everything taken care of, literally less than 24 hours before surgery, we still didn't have an insurance approval and fought with the insurance company, and ultimately they denied me because of a bogus reason. So I was devastated because the job I had at the time, I was working in a church with the youth and children's ministries, and I only had a couple of windows of opportunity during the year between my own children being school-aged and with the kids at the church with their program. I really only had a couple of windows of opportunity where I could take 2 to 4 weeks off if I had needed extra time. So I had to wait, and it turned out that it was a blessing in disguise, because in November of 2015, I was diagnosed with a ton, and I do mean a ton, of food allergies. Like I ended up finding out I was allergic to 14 different foods. A handful of them were things I didn't eat anyway, like lamb and salmon, but the majority of them were things that I was eating, and I thought that I was eating and being healthy with them. And it turned out that I was allergic to eggs and dairy and peanuts and wheat and rye and barley and green beans and bananas and all these things that I thought, oh, I'm doing healthy things by eating Greek yogurt that's got lots of protein in it. Well, it was dairy. And I was eating veggie omelets with things in it that I thought I was being good about eating. And it turned out that the eggs were my absolute biggest allergy. So after I grieved things like the fact that I wasn't going to be able to eat Reese's Peanut Butter Cups anymore, which was my absolute favorite candy in the whole wide world, because I was allergic to the milk and the chocolate, and I was allergic to the peanuts, I took my doctor's advice, the allergy doctor who had done the blood test to figure out that I had all these food allergies, because I had all these symptoms that were really bizarre that I would have never thought would be related to food. But I had all these symptoms, and they cleared up within 72 hours, believe it or not. 72 hours of me getting off of all the foods that I was allergic to, which was pretty remarkable. So I'll have to do another video sometime and tell you all a little bit more about what my symptoms were and my results and such. So I ended up getting off all those foods, and I wanted to wait and see if that helped me lose weight. And the cool thing was, after my body got rid of all the edema from the inflammation, from the allergic reaction I was having every time I was eating, I did lose probably, 20 pounds or so. But 20 pounds is certainly not 150 pounds, which was my goal. I basically wanted to become half of myself, essentially. I really wanted to lose 175, but 150 I would be happy with. So I ended up changing my eating habits. And once again, this became a blessing in disguise, because a lot of the crap that I had been eating, I couldn't eat anymore because I was allergic to it. I couldn't go get chocolate peanut butter ice cream. Chocolate peanut butter Haagen-Dazs was one of my absolute favorite foods. I couldn't eat brownies. I couldn't eat cookies. I couldn't eat bread. I couldn't eat a lot of things that I could just quick grab and go. I miss my Wawa hoagies. I live in the Philadelphia area, and those of you who have a Wawa near you, I think you'll understand how hard it is to not run in and grab a hoagie or grab a sizzly for breakfast or things like that. I was eating bacon, egg, and cheese croissant, what we call sizzlies, with Wawa. And I couldn't do any of that anymore. I had to actually do a little bit of food planning and meal prep and such. And it took a while to get adjusted to that. But the good news was that had I had bariatric surgery, had I had a gastric bypass in August of 2015, one of the things that they tell you is to take in whey protein shakes. And I would have been very sick because I was allergic to whey, which is dairy, essentially. So I dodged the bullet there. Plus, they have you eat soft scrambled eggs after surgery. They suggest that you eat cottage cheese and yogurt and things that are soft, and all of that is dairy. And I would have been very sick and not know why. So as much as I was upset and disappointed, it was still a good thing in the long run. And so it turned out that I went through the surgery process again to sign up with, I was seeing my surgeon the whole time. I was still going to monthly meetings and to show this insurance company that I definitely was serious, that I was doing all the things that I was supposed to be doing and jumping through all the hoops. And my surgeon's office definitely had my back and went to bat for me. So I had set up for my surgery to be August 2016, a year later. The insurance company, the same lady, tried to deny me again for another bogus reason, but this time my surgeon's office, shout out to Linda, she is amazing, and she called and got a hold of the higher ups, this woman's boss, and told her what was going on and submitted all my information to the higher up, who then said there's no reason not to grant this woman her surgery. And at I think my highest at that point had been 347 pounds. I was hovering in the 330s. I was usually about 332 to 335, and I was really upset about that. And so I was very, very relieved and a little scared that I got a surgery date, essentially. Now I can tell you, after the food allergy diagnosis, a lot of the symptoms that I had always been told were weight related went away. My knees stopped creaking because there was not inflammation there. My joints in my hands weren't usually swollen. They had calmed down tremendously. My rings on my fingers fit a lot more loosely because they weren't all swollen, and those were good things. But I still needed to lose a significant amount of weight. I was still tired all the time. I was still a size 24, sometimes a size 26 in women's clothing. I was wearing 2X and 3X t-shirts. And so I ended up having my gastric bypass. At the time, I had gone down to 309 pounds. I was 309 the day of surgery. That was a combination of a week of the pre-op liquid diet and the edema that had gone away from my food allergies. So I was at 309. I still was looking for a 175 was my goal weight, and it still is. And so I had my surgery in August of 2016. And a month later, I was doing okay. I had been healing all right. I had still not gone back to work. I was doing okay. And then all of a sudden, I started getting sick. I started throwing up even 2 sips of water. And I didn't know what was going on. So I went to the ER. And turned out over the course of 3 weeks, I was admitted to the ER at least twice, and then admitted to the hospital through the ER, I should say. And every time I would stay in the hospital over the weekend, 2-3 days, they would do all kinds of tests. They would rehydrate me, give me nausea meds, and then send me home saying I was doing okay. And within 24 hours, I was back to being super nauseated and weak and couldn't keep anything down, and then back in the hospital. My doctor, my bariatric surgeon, finally was able to see me and was able to figure out that I had what is called a stricture, which is basically where the plumbing clogs up, so to speak. With a gastric bypass, they make your stomach a lot smaller. They give you what's called a pouch, and they then have to resect the bottom of your stomach down into your intestines. They skip part of your intestines essentially, so you don't absorb all the food that you eat. It doesn't have as far along that intestinal tract to go through and be absorbed. That's part of how you lose weight, and combined with the fact that your stomach can hold a lot less food at one sitting. And so what I ended up having happen was where they cut and they resected, I had massive amounts of scar tissue because my body decided it wanted to get the Olympic gold medal for scar tissue, apparently. And so even though my surgeon was knowledgeable and accounted when he resected the bottom of the stomach to the intestines, he accounted for the fact that there would be some scarring. He did not have any way to anticipate the fact that my body was going to almost completely close up that place where he sewed me back together. So nothing could get through. It literally clogged up the plumbing. So I would take 2 sips of water and I would throw it back up, which of course caused me to be severely dehydrated. So I had another hospital stay for 2 or 3 days while they ended up saying that I needed to have what's called TPN. They put in a port up here. In fact, they put it up in this area right here in the general shoulder area. They put in a central line, a PICC line, and then I ended up going home, and for the next month had home health nurses come and check on me, and I was on a nutrition bag, an IV nutrition bag that went through this port 16 hours a day, every day for a month. I had to sleep with this bag hooked up to me. It was not comfortable at all, but it had to basically build me back up nutritionally for what I was being deprived of all this time when I couldn't even take in much of anything by mouth. I did eventually get to the point while I was still hooked up through this central port to be able to eat and drink some things by mouth. But for the most part, my main nutrition source was this thing. So I had big IV bags hanging in this bag, this big black satchel type of bag that I had to take with me everywhere. I pretty much stayed at home most of the time during this time. And the home health nurses would come and check my blood weekly and change out a lot of the things that they needed to change out for me. So it was no fun at all. As well as that, along with that, blah, 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 easy for me to say, I also had to go in weekly for an endoscopy where it was a combination of 4 different procedures, essentially. Every week I'd go in, I'd go under anesthesia, the surgeon would go in and insert the balloon into the area that had been closed up and would inflate it 2 to 3 millimeters to try to break open some of that scar tissue. So it very slowly widened the area of the stricture to the point where eventually things could get back through again. And after the very first one of those, I felt so much better because not everything was immediately coming back up. And after about the 3rd one of those, I started feeling a bit like my old self again. But I'll tell you, it took me a solid 6 months after that to get back to what I would consider being fully normal. I was experiencing weight loss during that time. I was excited about the fact that the pounds were dropping and my clothes sizes were getting smaller, and went through all the weird mental stuff of can't believe it and this isn't me, and having to see pictures of myself in order to believe because I couldn't see it in the mirror. But I can definitely tell you that I can look at pictures of myself pre-op and post-op, and I can definitely see a big difference. It took a long time to get back to being healthy, but I can say right now I am in the 2.0s. I haven't quite hit Wonderland yet. I'm in the 207 to 210 roughly. and have been there for a while. I wear a large or an extra large in t-shirts. I'm so thrilled at that. It just depends on how they're cut. I can wear a size 12 jeans, and I'm so thrilled at that. My feet are no longer wide width. I can wear a women's 11 regular, or sometimes even a 10 regular, or a 10 wide, depending on how the shoes are cut. I don't need an 11 wide shoe anymore. A lot of different things have gotten smaller on me. My kids joke with me that they can put their arms all the way around me now. And sometimes it's still kind of mind-blowing because I've lived so many years being a morbidly obese person. I still have a tendency to look around the room to scout out the largest seat or the one with the most elbow room because I don't want to be, smushing over into somebody else's personal space beside me. There's a lot of mental things that have to change after you lose the weight. It doesn't change your mind. It doesn't change how you view the world. It doesn't change how you experience the world. But I can still say, after all of my journey, all of my ups and my downs, that at age 49, I do not regret having my gastric bypass. I am so grateful that I had it. I even understand how the stricture and that complication made me grow. I won't go into that here because that's too long of a story to really get into, but it really shifted my perspective on things. And I can tell you honestly, I appreciate my surgery and my journey that much more. I am so grateful that I survived the complication, and I am so grateful that I get to live life in this imperfect body, that I get to have so much more energy, that I get to be much more physically able to do things that I couldn't do before. I still have aches and pains, and I've still got a few other little health things going on. But I am definitely not on the road to diabetes anymore. I am not on the road to high blood pressure. My blood pressure is pretty much always in a very good range. And I just physically feel so much better in my body and in my skin. And I really can say this, that it is worth it. You have to make your own decision with you and your surgeon. Nobody can make that decision for you. Your friends, your family, your significant other, nobody can make that surgery decision for you. Yes, there is the possibility of complications. Yes, there are a few people whose life is worse off, not better off after surgery. Those people do exist, unfortunately. However, for many, many, many people, they are success stories. They have a journey. They have a story, and I would encourage you to get online, look for blogs, look for web stories, look for YouTube videos of people's journeys, and see what the good, the bad, and the ugly is if you're also considering surgery. Now, if you're somebody who's had surgery already, then you definitely can relate to the good, the bad, and the ugly after surgery. No surgery is perfect. Nobody's going to react in the same way in terms of their physical body or their mental thoughts and their experiences surrounding surgery. But I want you to know, I tell you my story because you are not alone. There are so many of us out there who have had surgery or who are dealing with morbid obesity who really want things to change. And I can tell you from personal experience that it takes you making a decision to change in order for you to change. Part of my goal on this Your Gentle Nudge channel, and with my private Facebook group, and with all the other things that I do with my weight loss surgery courses online and things like that, is to encourage you to change, to give you some tools and resources to help you do that, but most importantly, to just support you and to encourage you. So please, please, please feel free to reach out to me. You can get me at yourgentlenudge.com, which is my website. You can find me on Facebook at Christine, Chrisistine, Your Gentle Nudge. That's my username on there. You can also go into Facebook and look for Life Before and After Bariatric Surgery, Doing the Emotional Work. That's my private Facebook group. Or you can just drop a link down or drop a message down below this video, and I will do my best to reach out to you. But no matter what your story is, no matter where you are on this journey, I want to encourage you. I want you to know that there are people who understand what you're going through. There are people who have been through what you are going through and what you have been through. And that you can make the decision to change your life. I got your back. Reach out. Take care.